Going to be reading from Slacker, Chapter 20, Chuck Kinsey. I still liked video games. They just weren't my whole life anymore. Sooner or later, something comes along that shows you what really matters. And that's what being a pagger did for me. Before that, everything was about hanging out with Cam and Pavel, eating gummy worms, and playing video games. Now I had a higher purpose, a calling almost, although it had nothing to do with church. I knew it the first minute that we were out there at the Senior Citizens Garden Project. This old guy bent over to dig up the last of his potatoes, and his back went out because it had been wonky, whatever that means, since the Korean War. So I did it for him. It was easy for me. He was smiling. I was smiling. Even one of the potatoes looked like it had been, had a kind of a smile on its face, although that was obviously random. It was a perfect moment, and I did it just by getting down on my hands and knees and pulling a few lumps out of the ground. It was amazing that I'd lived 13 years and never really understood about helping before. Yeah, it was good for other people, but it was even better for the guy doing the helping. I should have known that because my sister, Emma, had been in the Friends of Fuzzy since freshman year of high school. But sometimes you couldn't see the forest for the fire. I used to get upset when my clan base got sacked or when evil McKill people crushed me. But now everything was cool because the PAG had shown me what was important, which was why I flipped out when I saw the Klinkner Chronicle that morning. And it read, "The Positive Action Group has done so much good for this town that it's a shame to hear about the incident at the library last week. We all understand that middle schoolers in their playful high spirits may do some accidental damage, but when sanitation workers found a section of honeysuckle hedge in the garbage outside the home of PAG President Cameron Boxer, it was hard not to conclude that this was an act of deliberate vandalism." I choked on a bite of toast. "That's not true!" Emma laughed. "That'll teach your dumb friend to dispose of the evidence in his own trash can. I always knew that kid's head wasn't screwed on right." "The PAG didn't touch those bushes," I swore. "Jennifer Del Rio tore them up and dumped them on Cam's lawn." My mother frowned. "Jennifer would never do anything like that. She's a lovely girl." "You're delusional," Emma said to me. Now, there was something about her face that made me uneasy, like kind of an I know something you don't look. Later on the way to school, Cam, Pavel, and I passed by the little kids' playground on 4th Street. A PAG crew had worked there the previous afternoon, power washing the jungle gym and the swing sets. I stared. The place was a swamp. Mud dripped from the climber and oozed down the twisty slide and the seesaws. There were piles of it on the toddler swings. The sandbox was more like a quicksand box. We stopped in front of the sign declaring this to be Eagle Park. Right across the face of it, someone had written in magic marker, "Mud is thicker than water. Paggers rule." "Jennifer and Tony did this!" I exclaimed in horror. "Then it's not our problem," Cam said pointedly. "It is if Audra Klinkner writes in her stupid column that it's our fault," Pavel countered. "Well, we shouldn't have to think about this," Cam complained. "We're supposed to be in training for Rule the World. We're not going to make it past the first round." "Come on, Cam," I pleaded. "You're a pagger too. I know things didn't turn out the way we planned, but we can't let Jennifer and Tony do this to us." He kept on walking. Now at school, everybody was talking about Eagle Park, but also about the flower beds in front of the community college. They grew chrysanthemums to spell out "Welcome Alumni" for homecoming weekend. The PAG had weeded the beds just for a few days. Now everything was dead, trampled to pieces, and kicked into the earth. "Do you think they'll blame us?" I asked. "Count on it," Jordan predicted grimly. "I saw Audra Klinkner over there with a photographer. This is so unfair." Felicia looked thoughtful. "Unfair or not, I don't think you can risk being a part of this. If it turns into a scandal, Kelly could use it to bury you in the election." "I'm standing right here," Kelly said in an annoyed tone, "and I'm as PAG as anybody. This is bigger than the election. Somebody is out to get us." I was dying to tell them that I what I knew about Jennifer and Tony, but Cam had sworn me to secrecy. I'm not going up against Jennifer, Cam insisted. She is crazy. This is too important, man. Hundreds of paggers are depending on you. He shrugged. It doesn't matter. I've got no proof. I pounced on this. Of course you do. You've got a witness. String was with you when Tony dumped that bush on your lawn. He laughed without smiling. I can hear it now. Nobody witnesses a bush dumping like the String. Cameron! Mr. Fanshawe burst out of the stairwell, skidded once on the terrazzo floor, and swooped down on us. Hi, Mr. Sir? Cameron, what's going on? We can explain about the park, I burst out, and the flower beds. Never mind that, the guidance counselor exploded. What about the leaves? Leaves? Cam echoed. The PAG was supposed to rake the leaves around Sycamore House. A crew was put together, and the school provided a bus. What happened? I was mystified. We did it. Ask anybody. Well, I just drove by there, Mr. Fanshawe snapped. I saw it with my own eyes. He was so bewildered that he signed Cam and me out at the office, and the three of us drove over to Sycamore House, which was our town's historical society offices and mini museum. It was the first home ever built around here, back in the early 1800s, and it was surrounded by rolling lawns and ginormous trees. It had taken an entire busload of us nearly 4 hours to rake and bag all of the leaves. Mr. Fanshawe pulled up to the curb and we stared. The lawn was so deep with leaves that you couldn't even see the grass. I looked at Cam and we both understood. Jennifer and Tony could rip up a bush, or stomp on flowers, or maybe even slime a jungle gym. But no two people could do this, not even if they worked all night. How do you explain this? Mr. Fanshawe demanded. Neither of us answered. What was there to say? That night, I was taking out the garbage when my dad pulled into the driveway in his pickup. He got out, leaving the motor running. I'm just going to go change, he told me. I have to go to the car wash. The next time your sister borrows the truck, it would be nice if she didn't trash it. And he rushed inside. Now, curious, I hopped up on the running board and peered into the payload. Leaves plastered the flatbed and clung to the sides, wet and shredded. There were darker shapes, too. Shreds of torn lawn bags. Suddenly, I knew how Jennifer and Tony had been able to undo all of our hard work. They hadn't. Not by themselves, anyway. They'd had help from people like my own sister. High school kids had more freedom than we did. They could stay out later, and they had access to cars and pickup trucks. Last night, they had driven all the way out to the town dump, loaded up our lawn bags, and brought the leaves back to the Sycamore house. Cam thought he was being picked on by Jennifer and her boyfriend. He didn't know the half of it. We were under full-on attack from the Friends of Fuzzy.